My name is Madison Wilkinson, and I am 31 years old. I was holding a full house when my phone started vibrating across the table like it was trying to crawl away from me, and when I flipped it over, I saw 11 missed calls from my boyfriend, Ben Carter. Then the text came in, sharp and dramatic. Come home now, or you'll regret it. I stepped outside to call him back, because I didn't want to be that person who lets a relationship argument bleed into a girls' night, and I figured if I answered fast enough, it would stay small. He picked up before the first ring even finished. "Where are you?" he said, voice trembling, but something about it felt practiced, like he was reading a script he'd already rehearsed in his head. "Girls' night, like I told you 3 days ago," I said, keeping my tone level. "What's wrong?" "Ben, what happened? Are you okay?" There was a pause, long enough that I could hear the quiet of the street behind me, and it didn't sound like fear. It sounded like calculation. "Just come home," he finally said. "I need you home right now." I exhaled, eyes closed, trying to keep my patience. "I'll be there at midnight," I told him. "Like I said." Another beat, then his voice turned flat. "Forget it." Click. He hung up on me like I was the one who did something wrong, and I stood there staring at my phone, feeling that weird mix of irritation and unease you get when someone's emotions don't match the moment. I went back inside and tried to slide back into the night, back into the laughter, the cards, the harmless trash talk, but my skin didn't settle. Ben had been moody lately, the kind of moody where every little boundary feels like betrayal to him, and I'd been telling myself it was stress or insecurity or something he'd work through once we got past this rough patch. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again, but this time it was an unknown number, and something in my stomach tightened before I even answered. "This is Officer Davis," a man's voice said, clipped and professional. "Are you the resident of apartment 4B? My throat went dry. "Yeah," I said. "What's going on?" He didn't waste time. "We're responding to a domestic violence call. Your boyfriend states you struck him in the face. We need you here immediately." For a second, I actually forgot how to breathe, like my body couldn't process the words fast enough to reject them. "I've been at my friend's house since 6, I said, and my voice sounded too calm for what my heart was doing. "I haven't touched him. I left the apartment before that." "Ma'am," Officer Davis said, firmer now. "Come home now." Time did that strange thing where it stretches and snaps at the same time, and I was already moving, already grabbing my coat, already telling my friends something was wrong without explaining enough for them to stop me. I drove like my life depended on it, because apparently it did. When I turned onto my street, I saw the flashing lights first, then the 2 patrol cars parked like they owned the curb, and then I saw faces and windows, phones held up, people filming like my humiliation was entertainment. My cheeks burned before I even put the car in park. I kept thinking, this can't be real. This can't be happening. But the closer I got, the more real it became. My front door was open. 2 cops were inside. Ben was on the couch with an ice pack pressed to his cheek, tears streaming down his face, looking properly traumatized, like he'd been practicing this exact expression in the mirror. The moment he saw me, he lifted his hand and pointed like I was holding a weapon. "That's her," he said, voice shaking in a way that sounded convincing if you didn't know him. Officer Davis stepped forward, hand hovering near his belt like I might explode. "Ma'am," he said, "your boyfriend says you hit him during an argument at approximately 6:30 p.m. before leaving." I felt my jaw lock. "Impossible," I said. "I left for girls' night at 5:45, and I've been there since. I have 5 witnesses." Ben sat up like that was hilarious. "She's lying," he said, and his eyes were wet but sharp. "She was drunk. She got mad when I asked her to stay home and she hit me." The female officer watched me the whole time, quiet, assessing, like she was weighing my face against his story. "Can anyone verify your location?" she asked. "Yes," I said immediately. 5 people. I have texts, timestamps, everything. For the first time, Ben's expression flickered. Just a flash, the tiniest crack in the performance, like he hadn't expected me to have anything but panic. And that's when my mind snapped onto the one thing he couldn't rewrite. "Officers," I said, turning slightly toward them, "I have a doorbell camera. Do you want to see what really happened?" Ben's face drained so fast it was almost supernatural. I pulled out my phone, opened the app, and my hands were steady, even though I wanted to shake. I found the clip from 5:43 p.m. It showed me walking out, turning back with a small smile, calling, "Love you, see you later." Ben's voice came through clear, warm, normal. "Have fun, babe." Then I skipped to 6:45 p.m. Ben came to the door, looked both ways down the hallway, and then he started talking to himself. Okay, he murmured, pacing just inside the frame. She hit me. He paused, frowned like he was adjusting his lines. No. She pushed me first, then hit me. Then he raised his hand and slapped his own cheek. Light at first, then harder, and the sound echoed through my living room like a gunshot. The apartment went silent. Even the neighbors outside seemed to fade, like the whole world was holding its breath. I looked at Ben over my phone screen, and my voice came out quiet and cold. Creative. He shook his head too fast. That's not, he started, and then his voice shrank. I didn't. Officer Davis didn't look at me anymore. He looked at Ben, and something hard settled into his posture. Sir, Officer Davis said, filing a false police report is a misdemeanor. Misuse of emergency services is another misdemeanor. And you just admitted on video to fabricating evidence of a felony assault. Ben's eyes went wide, and he tried to reach for the story again. I just wanted her to come home, he said, hands fluttering like panic could erase what we all saw. She's always leaving me alone. I was upset. The female officer tilted her head. So you committed 3 crimes, she said. And she pulled out handcuffs like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. Ben's meltdown was spectacular. Screaming, sobbing, begging, trying to twist it into me being the problem even while the video was still open on my phone. The neighbors definitely got their money's worth. They read him his rights while he wailed about how I was ruining his life, and I stood there thinking, you were willing to hand me a criminal record just to control my night. The irony didn't even land on him. After they took him, Officer Davis handed me his card. You'll need to give a formal statement tomorrow, he said. Keep that footage and seriously consider getting a restraining order. People who do this once typically escalate. My living room felt contaminated, like every object had absorbed his lie. I slept on the couch because I couldn't make myself walk into the bedroom, couldn't lay down in a space where he'd been planning how to destroy me. At 1:47 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A message from his mother. You had my son arrested over a misunderstanding. Drop the charges now. I stared at the words until they blurred, because it told me everything I needed to know about what was coming next. This wasn't going to end with the handcuffs. This was going to turn into a war, and they were already lining up on the other side. Update 1. A week later, Ben made bail. The next morning, his mommy and daddy posted $5,000 to get their precious angel out. And I learned fast that getting someone arrested doesn't end the story. It just changes the battlefield. The first thing I did was call a lawyer because I wasn't going to be the woman everyone politely doubted, while a man who hit himself played victim with a straight face. I found this sharp woman named Patricia Lang who specializes in false accusation cases, and when I sat across from her in her office with my phone in my hand, she didn't look shocked. She looked familiar. She watched the footage once without blinking, then watched it again, like she was collecting details the way other people collect receipts. When it ended, she leaned back and said, "You did everything right." I didn't realize how badly I needed someone to say that until my throat tightened. What should I expect? I asked, trying to sound composed. Patricia smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was the kind of smile you see right before the storm hits. War, she said. These cases bring out the absolute worst in people. She was right, and the worst showed up wearing polite voices and fake outrage, like they were doing me a favor by trying to bully me into silence. Day 3. Ben's best friend called me from a blocked number. His voice came through syrupy and judgmental. You're seriously pressing charges, he said, over a mistake. He was emotional. I held the phone away for a second like it might stain me, then brought it back. He committed perjury and tried to get me arrested for felony assault, I said. Not exactly a whoopsie. He scoffed like I was being dramatic. You're going to ruin his life over this. I felt something cold settle in my chest. No, I said. He ruined his own life. I just had a doorbell camera. He snapped back, called me heartless, said Ben loved me, like love was a shield you could hold up after you pull the trigger. Funny way of showing it, I said. Click. He hung up, and I stared at the silent screen, realizing how quickly people will defend cruelty if it comes wrapped in the word relationship. Then Ben's sister started posting on social media. Vague at first, the kind of posts that pretend they're not about you while still aiming straight at your throat. Some people are so heartless, then more direct. Imagine getting your boyfriend arrested because you can't handle an argument like an adult. Patricia told me to screenshot everything. Document all of it, she said. And I did, because I was learning the hard way that truth needs a paper trail in this world. Meanwhile, the detective handling the case called and wanted me to come in for a recorded statement. His name was Morrison, probably mid-40s, with tired eyes and the vibe of a man who'd seen too many lies dressed up as emergencies. He watched the footage and shook his head slowly. "You're lucky you had that camera," he said. "Without it, you'd be the one in cuffs." I didn't answer right away, because the thought made me feel nauseous, like my life could have snapped in half because my boyfriend wanted attention. "I'm aware," I said finally. He told me Ben had lawyered up, public defender already trying to negotiate a plea, but that footage changed everything. "He rehearsed it," Morrison said. "That's premeditation. The DA is not feeling generous." "Good," I said, and I meant it. Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Most people in your position are emotional," he said. "You seem calm." I stared at the table, at my hands folded so tightly my knuckles hurt. "I'm furious," I said. "But being emotional doesn't help me. Being smart does." He nodded, approving, then leaned forward just slightly. "Keep that energy," he said. "You're going to need it." Next came the property division, because even when someone tries to weaponize the police against you, they still want their stuff like nothing happened. Ben wanted his belongings, and Patricia's first rule was simple and brutal. "Don't be alone with him ever again." She said it like a commandment. One more accusation, even if it's dismissed, creates a pattern he can use against you. That sentence hit harder than anything, because it meant my safety depended on never giving him a private moment to rewrite reality. So when Ben texted asking to come by and talk, I replied with something that felt like steel in my mouth. "You can pick up your belongings Saturday at 2 p.m. My attorney's paralegal will be present. 30 minutes only." His response came fast. "Are you serious right now? I just want to talk." I read it twice, because the audacity almost looked like comedy. "All communication through your lawyer or mine," I typed. "See you Saturday." He showed up like he was filming a scene. His mom, his sister, his dad, and his best friend all behind him, like a jury he brought to shame me into surrender. They weren't here for clothes, they were here for control. His dad tried intimidation immediately, stepping into my doorway with his chest puffed out. "You should be ashamed of yourself," he said. "Getting a man arrested." I didn't blink. "A man who falsely accused me of assault," I said. "Potato, potato." His mouth tightened, like he didn't like my confidence, like it wasn't matching the script they expected. His sister jumped in, loud and righteous. "He wouldn't have done it if you treated him better." Patricia's paralegal cleared her throat, a small sound that cut through their performance. "We're here to collect belongings only," she said. "The resident has requested no personal discussions." Ben barely looked at me, but when he did, it was pure hatred, the kind that comes from someone who can't stand that their lie didn't work. He started grabbing clothes, bathroom stuff, the basics. Then he went for the 65-inch TV like he was taking a trophy. "That's mine," I said, calm enough to scare myself. "We bought it together," he snapped. "I bought it," I corrected. "You wanted the bigger screen. I paid the extra $600. Check your payment history." His mom piped up with that syrupy tone people use when they want to sound reasonable while being cruel. "It's just a TV," she said. "Stop being petty." I nodded once. "Then he won't mind leaving it," I said. And her lips pressed together like she tasted something bitter. They loaded Ben's stuff while I supervised, every second feeling like a test, like if I reacted wrong, they'd pounce. When they were finishing up, Ben tried one last time, softer now, like he was switching tactics. "I'm sorry," he said. "Okay, I was stupid. Can't we just figure this out?" I looked at him and felt nothing warm. "Nope," I said, just one word, and it landed like a door locking. His best friend got in my face, eyes narrowed, voice sharp. "You're really going to let him go to court over this? He made a mistake. He's got anxiety." I let the silence stretch, then said, "And I've got a doorbell camera. Funny how technology works." His face twisted, but he backed off because there was nothing left to argue when reality had receipts. After they left, the apartment felt too quiet, like the air itself was waiting to see what they'd do next. That's when I found it, shoved under the couch like it wanted to stay hidden. A small notebook, Ben's handwriting. I flipped it open, and my stomach dropped with every line. Therapy talking points. Make her feel guilty about girls' night. Bring up her emotional unavailability. Get her to agree to a joint account for transparency. Page after page of manipulation tactics, ways to isolate me from friends, ways to gain access to my finances, red flags I'd missed because I'd been busy trying to be understanding. I photographed every page and sent them to Patricia. Her reply came back almost instantly. "Oh, this keeps getting better. Discovery is going to be fun." The words should have made me feel relieved, but instead they made me feel haunted, because it meant this wasn't just about one fake call. It was a whole plan, a mindset, a person who saw me as something to manage and harvest, not someone to love. 3 days later, Ben's public defender called Patricia trying to negotiate. They wanted the charges reduced to a violation, no jail time, sealed record, like this was a parking ticket and not an attempted life ruin. Patricia's response was ice. "Your client rehearsed a false felony accusation on camera," she said, "injured himself to create evidence and wasted emergency resources that could have gone to actual victims." She gave a counteroffer. "Ben pleads to all charges, takes the conviction, and I don't file a civil suit for defamation and emotional distress. You have 48 hours, she said. They didn't take the deal. Fine by me. Let's go to trial. Update 2. The preliminary hearing was last week, and Ben showed up, dressed like a rebrand. Conservative button-down, hair neatly trimmed, shoulders slightly hunched, like he was trying to look smaller, safer. The "I am a good man who made a mistake" costume. The prosecutor laid it out clean and brutal, the doorbell footage, the self-inflicted injuries, the rehearsed lines, the misuse of emergency services. Ben's public defender tried to argue mental health crisis, voice soft, hands open like that alone should excuse what we all saw. The judge watched the footage twice. Then he leaned forward and said something that made my chest loosen for the first time in days. "Counselor, your client is checking his appearance and adjusting his story between attempts. That is not a mental health crisis. That is rehearsal. Trial date set, 3 months out. That's when everything went nuclear." First, Ben's mom started a Facebook campaign. A long, emotional post about innocent men being persecuted by a broken system and vindictive ex-girlfriends who manipulate evidence. She tagged me. She tagged my employer. She tagged my family. My phone started lighting up with messages before I even saw the post. When my mother read it, she went feral in the most protective way possible. She replied publicly with screenshots of the court documents showing Ben was charged with filing a false report. "Interesting how you think video evidence of your son hitting himself is manipulation," she wrote. "Maybe teach him not to commit crimes instead of blaming the victims of his lies." Ben's mom tried to claim I doctored the footage. That lasted about an hour before multiple people pointed out that doorbell cameras have metadata that proves authenticity. She deleted everything, but deletion doesn't erase screenshots, and it definitely doesn't erase damage. At my gym, the front desk girl who used to chat with me suddenly went cold. At work, conversations stopped when I walked into rooms. Ben's sister had apparently been telling anyone who would listen that I got away with assault on a technicality. I pulled my manager aside, showed him the court documents, explained everything. He was understanding, but careful. "You understand why we have to be cautious," he said. I nodded, because I was learning that even proof doesn't protect you from suspicion. Then Ben escalated again. He filed for a restraining order against me, claimed I was harassing his family, stalking his social media, threatening him through mutual friends, all fiction, all typed out on official paperwork that still forced me to take a day off work, pay my lawyer, and sit in a courtroom while he cried about being afraid of me. Patricia came prepared. Phone records showing I blocked Ben's number, screenshots proving I blocked him and his family on every platform, witness statements from friends confirming I hadn't mentioned his name in weeks except to my lawyer. The judge reviewed everything slowly, then looked straight at Ben. "You are currently facing criminal charges for filing a false police report," he said. "Now you are here filing what appears to be another false legal claim. Do you see the pattern problem here?" Ben stared at the table. His public defender tried to interrupt. The judge shut it down. Petition denied. Then he added something that felt like a warning shot. "Counselor, advise your client that filing false legal documents will make his criminal case significantly worse." Ben burst into tears. His mom started yelling about protecting male victims. The bailiff escorted them out. I won again, but winning didn't feel clean. At work, people heard restraining order hearing, not petition denied. My boss called me in. "I'm not saying I believe anything," he said carefully, "but HR is concerned about the situation." "The situation where my ex is facing criminal charges for lying about me," I said. He sighed. "Optics matter," he replied. Translation, I was radioactive until the truth finished moving at the speed of bureaucracy. That weekend, 11 p.m., I was on my couch watching TV when my phone buzzed with a doorbell alert. Ben was on my porch, pounding on my door. "Open up," he yelled. "We need to talk." I didn't answer. I called 911 immediately and stayed inside while the camera recorded everything. He rattled the doorknob, kicked the door, screamed that I ruined his life, and he would make sure everyone knew the truth. The cops arrived in 6 minutes, found him still there, mid-rant. They arrested him again. Violation of the no-contact order from his bail conditions. The next morning, Patricia filed for an emergency protective order. Granted immediately. The prosecutor called her directly. "Your client's ex violated bail," he said. "We're adding witness intimidation. Bail's getting revoked." Ben spent 5 days in lockup before his parents could scrape together a bondsman. During those 5 days, his dad called my office and somehow got through to my boss. Told him I was harassing his son and couldn't be trusted around men. My boss called me in again, this time irritated. "I believe you," he said, "but this is becoming a distraction." I showed him everything, the footage, the charges, the bail violation. He rubbed his face. "Let's get through the trial," he said. "Then this will blow over." Perception. That word kept coming back. Patricia filed harassment charges against Ben's dad and sent a cease and desist for defamation. He backed off, but Ben's sister picked up where he left off, leaving 1-star reviews on my company's page with my name attached. HR had to involve legal to remove them. Every time Ben's public defender tried to negotiate, the offer got worse because Ben couldn't stop making his own case heavier. Final offer before trial. Plead guilty to all charges. 90 days jail, 3 years probation, restitution for my legal fees. Patricia asked if I wanted her to accept it. I didn't hesitate. "No," I said. "I want a jury to hear exactly what he did." She warned me trials were expensive, exhausting. I didn't care. "He tried to ruin my life," I said. "I want everyone to hear it." Patricia smiled, slow and sharp. "Now we're talking," she said. "Let's finish this." The trial started on a Tuesday, and by then I'd learned that justice doesn't arrive with drama. It arrives with fluorescent lights and uncomfortable chairs. 3 days on the calendar, that's what they told us, like it was a routine meeting instead of the thing that would decide how the rest of my life felt when I walked into a room. Ben sat at the defense table looking smaller than I remembered, jaw tight, eyes darting whenever the doorbell footage played on the monitor during pre-trial motions, like he was hoping it might finally glitch and disappear. The prosecutor opened with the video. Not summaries, not interpretations, just the footage. The sound of Ben's hand hitting his own face echoed through the courtroom, and I watched the jury flinch in real time. You could feel the air shift when they heard him talk to himself, heard him adjust the story, saw him check his reflection before committing to the performance. There's something uniquely chilling about watching someone rehearse cruelty, and it doesn't need commentary to land. When it was my turn to testify, Patricia's prep replayed in my head. Tell the truth. Don't embellish. Let the evidence breathe. I said my name, my age, how long Ben and I had been together, and then I walked them through that night like I was tracing a scar with my finger. Girls' night, the calls, the police, the doorbell footage. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I answered what was asked and stopped when I was done, because there's power in restraint when the truth is already loud. The defense tried to paint me as cold, detached, emotionally unavailable, like that somehow justified a false felony accusation. They asked about girls' nights, about boundaries, about whether Ben felt neglected. I looked at the jury and said, feeling lonely does not give someone the right to lie to police and try to put another person in prison. Patricia didn't object. She didn't need to. The silence did the work for her. When Ben took the stand, he tried the tears again, talked about being overwhelmed, about wanting attention, about not meaning to hurt anyone. The prosecutor let him talk, then leaned in. So you were willing to have Miss Wilkinson arrested and potentially imprisoned for a felony to get attention? He asked. Ben hesitated. I didn't think it through, he said. The prosecutor nodded once. But you rehearsed it multiple times, he replied. You checked your appearance between attempts. That requires thought. Ben had no answer. His eyes dropped, and the moment stretched until the jury stopped seeing a victim and started seeing intent. Then came the character witnesses. His mother cried about her son making one mistake. His sister claimed I'd been emotionally abusive for months. Patricia dismantled that with timestamps, messages, and finally the notebook. When the pages were projected on the screen, the room shifted again. Therapy talking points, manipulation strategies, plans to isolate me, plans to access my finances. You could almost hear the jury recalibrating, the pieces snapping into a picture that made too much sense. His best friend tried to suggest I must have done something to deserve it. The judge shut that down fast. Stick to the questions asked, he said, voice sharp enough to cut. By the time closing arguments came around, the case felt heavy in the way truth does when it's undeniable. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes that felt longer than the entire relationship. When they came back, the foreperson didn't hesitate. Guilty on filing a false police report, guilty on misuse of emergency services, guilty on filing a false instrument, guilty on attempted witness intimidation. Each word landed like a door closing, final and solid. Ben stared straight ahead, and for the first time, he didn't look like he had another angle. Sentencing was today. The judge didn't soften his voice. "Mr. Carter," he said, "you didn't just lie to police. You weaponized the justice system against an innocent person. You wasted resources meant for actual victims, and when consequences approached, you escalated by violating court orders." He paused, then added the part that felt like oxygen. "You have made it harder for real victims to be believed. That is unforgivable." The sentence came down heavy. 364 days in county jail, 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service at a domestic violence shelter, mandatory counseling, $12,400 in restitution to me for legal fees, permanent criminal record. Ben's mother screamed. Actual screaming. "You're destroying his life," she yelled. "For what? He made a mistake." The judge didn't flinch. "Your son's mistake could have sent an innocent woman to prison for years," he said. "He's receiving less than he deserves." The bailiff escorted them out, while Ben sat there shaking, finally out of stories. Outside the courtroom, Patricia shook my hand. "That was one of the most satisfying convictions I've seen in years," she said. "Usually these plead out. The jury needed to see it." Ben's public defender tried to approach. Patricia shut him down without looking at him. "We're done here," she said. "Your client earned his sentence." I walked out into the daylight, feeling lighter and heavier at the same time, like something had been lifted, but the imprint was still there. The fallout didn't explode, it settled, slow and strange, like dust after a building collapses. The day after the verdict, my boss called me into his office. He didn't dance around it this time. "Congratulations," he said, then sighed. "And I'm sorry for the position this put you in." He offered time off, told me to take care of myself, and for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel like I had to prove I was safe to be around. The word optics finally stopped hovering over my head like a threat. At the gym, the manager pulled me aside near the front desk. "Hey," he said, awkward but sincere. "I heard about the trial. Sorry we gave you the cold shoulder." I nodded, because apologies don't erase the way people hesitate around you when accusations float, but they do mark where the tide turns. "People are talking," he added. "The real story's getting out." Funny how truth always moves slower than lies, but when it arrives, it doesn't whisper. Friends who had gone quiet started texting again. Casual check-ins. Invitations like nothing had happened. Patricia warned me about that too. "Be selective," she said. "Anyone who believed him over evidence showed you who they are." She was right. Some doors don't reopen, and that's not bitterness. That's self-respect. I sold most of the furniture Ben and I picked out together. The couch, the bed frame, the ugly lamp he insisted was modern. I redecorated completely, not because I needed a fresh look, but because I needed the space to feel like mine again. New couch, new bed, new air. For the first time in months, I slept without checking the Doorbell app before closing my eyes. Patricia framed a still from the doorbell footage. The moment Ben stood there rehearsing, and hung it in her office with a caption that read, "Why you always install cameras." She uses it now when new clients hesitate about documentation. I hate that my life became a lesson, but if it keeps someone else from being destroyed by a lie, I'll live with that. I started dating again last month, a man named Andrew. Nothing dramatic, no rushing. I told him the whole story on our second date, because secrets rot trust before it even forms. He listened, without interrupting, then said something that stuck with me. "That camera saved your life." He wasn't wrong. We're taking it slow. I don't mistake caution for fear anymore. It's just experience speaking. I ran into Ben's sister at a coffee shop last week. She pretended not to see me, stared at her phone like it might swallow her. I didn't push it. Some people will never admit they were wrong, even when the truth has a criminal record and a sentence attached to it. Ben is sitting in county jail now, serving his 364 days. His mother is apparently trying to raise money for an appeal. Good luck with that, when the footage plays exactly the same every time. I'm working with Patricia on a civil suit for defamation and emotional distress. She thinks we have a strong case, especially with the documented harassment from his family and the damage to my professional reputation. Even when you win, some people still look at you differently. That damage has a price. Life isn't perfect. I still flinch when my phone rings late. I still check the doorbell camera more than I probably need to. Trust doesn't come back all at once. But I sleep now. I breathe. I walk into rooms without wondering who believes me. Ben thought he could manipulate reality. He forgot we live in the age of video evidence. He wanted me to come home early from girls' night. He got my attention, just not the way he planned. I'm free. He's paying for what he tried to weaponize. And that door, the one he tried to kick down with lies, stays closed.